So, Mr. Floyd, give us some, give our teachers some stories. Stories about maybe some stories about when Dinah was TMAC president.
That's why is this happening right now?
I can't tell any of those in this public audience. I will tell you the greatest thing I saw yesterday among the many wonderful things is, and I couldn't ever really tell if it was on one of the networks because it was after the part of the parade that was live, if you will, and it was the virtual presentation that sort of skipped around the country and stuff. But there was a story about, looked like a middle school, maybe a young high school age trumpet player who had committed himself to playing every day at this hospital. And he would set up his music stand out front, pretty big hospital, and he would play for all the people coming and going, but mainly for the medical staff, as well as the patients that to the extent that they could hear him. And it was just so heartwarming to see. I kept thinking, I've forgotten what they showed first. I said, okay, are they going to show anything, showing the impact of the arts? We all go way back to the first pictures out of Italy, way back when, it was Italians in their apartments, singing from their balconies, singing folk music, singing their national anthem, playing their musical instruments. And as you know, throughout the whole pandemic, that's been a huge component of the healing of the country and certainly the nurturing of the human spirit and all the things that we know the arts do. And so I was glad yesterday, and certainly the role that music played in the ceremony itself was wonderful. And to see the Marine Band there, they were coming to TMEA, and we had it all planned for this next month until we didn't make the final decision that they wouldn't come until we made the decision to go virtual. And they were still committed to doing a tour in this part of the country, which I'm sure has gone away now. I haven't talked to their conductor in a while, but I'm sure it has. But at any rate, it was nice to see music woven throughout the fabric of everything that happened yesterday. And in your own mind, we hear this all the time, and we never stop to think about it. What if you'd lifted all the music out of the whole day events? And what an impact that would have had in a negative way, if you will, or at least taking away from the excitement and the aura and the good feelings and the vibes and the nurturing of the spirit of the healing of the country, which we need so desperately now. I mean, there's never been a better opportunity for the arts and music in particular to play a role in the healing of this country. And that's the message I know we've been pushing out there, but whether it's at the Capitol or in our own campus or in our own district or our own community, we've got to continue to push out the message of the importance of how, not just how we serve students and touch their lives, but everything around us and society in general. For those of you who are going to be at TMEA virtually, and I hope it's 100% of you, if you've never heard Wynton Marsalis talk about that whole messaging, don't miss his keynote at the convention. We're really excited to get him. And I think it'll be very uplifting and inspirational. So I'm done.
You're done. anyone who is here with us on this meeting, please tell friends that this meeting gets filled up. This is available also on the Texas Music Administrators Conference YouTube channel. It's being shown live right now. So if anybody has trouble getting on this meeting, just text some friends and have them join us there. We will also have this taped and available on that channel as well. So yeah. One of our goals is we can have up to 500 on this channel, on this Zoom call, and we're hoping to blow that up real soon. So get your friends to join us. All right, let's get the show started. I'm Jim Egger. I'm the Director of Fine Arts in McAllen ISD, and I'm very honored to be the president of the Texas Music Administrators Conference this year. And it's such a blessing to lead this group, and we're so excited about having TMAC joining us today and having fine arts teachers from across the state join us. Nothing is more impactful to us than fine arts teachers. Fine arts teachers have more power than anyone else. Together, you can do anything you want. And we know that this has the potential of being a tough time for this country. And we know that we can come together and make fine arts stronger and protect the future of fine arts for this country. So TMAC has teamed with Texas Music Educators Association to find a way to really impact our legislature this year. So I want to thank y'all for joining us, and I can't thank you enough for what you do every day in classrooms, changing the world through what you do. So without any further ado, I have the honor of turning this over to Mr. Bob Floyd from TMAC.
Thanks, Jim, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to give you an overview this afternoon of this new project of TMAC and TMAC entitled the Texas Arts Education Campaign, TAEC. And I certainly extend my heartfelt thanks for all of the teachers on this Zoom today, willing to hopefully assist us in this project. I know you agree, as Jim just said, these are critical and perilous times for all of us in arts education. And our board at TMAC believe this is a step that we must take, elevating our message to state decision makers of how we serve students in our classroom. And the urgency of sharing that experience is now more important than ever before. So TMAC reached out to Matt Matthews, our lobbyist partner in crime at the Capitol for the last 15 years, and Julia Grizzard, legislative director just this past session and one before that, for Representative Diego Bernal, who was vice chair of the House Public Education Committee. We asked them to be the architects of this campaign based on their experience, not just as lobbyists, but as legislative staffers at the Capitol, and as successfully running statewide election campaigns for politicians such as former Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, and also their experience as authors of legislation at the Capitol. Under this plan, I truly believe we have an opportunity to deliver our message stronger and more powerful than in each of the 28 years that I have spent at TMAC and at the Capitol. So we look forward to working with the TMAC officers, the members, and we look forward to all associations and organizations who desire to join us in this journey, supporting not just music, but visual arts, theater, and dance. But we look most forward to working with you as teachers, helping to tell your story and delivering our message. So more than a coalition or an alliance, a campaign denotes urgency and a specific goal. And we believe this is the best way, as we say, to slay the dragon that potentially is waiting at the Capitol. Direct threats already in filed legislation potentially limiting students' access to fine arts programs. So I would like to turn over this short presentation to Matt and to Julia to give you an overview of the campaign and the importance of the role we are asking you to play to help us achieve this goal. So Matt and Julia, take it away.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and to work with you guys. It's been an honor for Julia and I to represent the fine arts movement and TMEA in particular as the lobbyist inside the Capitol. And we've had some great success over the years. And in fact, we've even done some things that there's some other folks that are jealous of our accomplishments that would like to mirror what we've done in the Capitol. But as you're going to hear a little bit later on, things are changing quite a bit in the Texas political climate, and the dynamics are changing a little bit. And Julia will go through some of those changes. But we're here to tell you today that we need your help. The fine arts education programs are under attack. Some of these attacks are deliberate. Some of them there are unintended consequences. But rather than playing defense and waiting for things to come and happen to us, we believe that it was time to promote a new plan. Bob and TMAC had directed us to put together kind of a structure for what a campaign would look like. What is it that you do in a campaign, a grassroots campaign, and how would that work? We know you've got a million things on your plate. You're worn out and you're stressed, but really your lives and these programs and our kids can be damaged by the unintended consequences of legislation. And so whether it's legislation or regulation, we need your input. And we know that we've got the most passionate educators, the most passionate parents, and the most passionate students of any discipline in education. So we hope that this idea and this proposal will help us be successful in the future. We know that they're coming, but we just need your help. And there's no one that is more successful and helpful than a teacher. And we'll talk about what, we'll talk about why, and we'll talk about how in just a minute. Julia, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the political landscape so that some of these educators can understand what is different about now and why we're coming to them to ask for their help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate being here. I also just want to say thank you for everything that you all are doing each and every day. As you saw from my kind of quick slide of introduction, Matt and I both have backgrounds in music. I went to school to be a music teacher, so it really truly is an honor to be here in front of you today. Currently, what we're seeing, actually, as we speak in the legislative session, is we have a state budget that is down, not as down as we thought it might be. It's down 0.4% from last year, but state employment numbers are up. It's the highest they've ever been since the recession in 2008 and 9. And while we think that education budgets overall will be flat, that means that program budgets are largely uncertain across the state. And some of you all are experiencing that now in real time as ISDs are dealing with difficult decisions, as hold harmless funding potentially expires and different decisions are being made to prioritize funding. And so, as Matt said, we're in a changing dynamic, we're in a changing times, and now is more important than ever for us all to stand together, united for arts education. Now, the Capitol is open. We thought that it would not be this session. We thought that there might be some starts and stops, but the Capitol is open. However, as you all live this every single day of your lives, we still have a pretty significant, a very significant pandemic. We see recovery in our sites, but largely operationally, the atmosphere at the Capitol is very different. Traditionally, lobbying or consulting or advocating in the Capitol is a lot about face time. It's about being in the hallway. It's about being in near the House floor. It's about attending those network sessions and making way too much small talk, if you ask me. And so that's largely going to change, which makes this group, right, the outreach from these incredible faces that I see in these Zoom boxes, so much more critical. So let's talk a little bit more about the why for this campaign.
So Mike Tyson famously once said that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so we've decided that it's time for us to create a new plan. We've had legislation filed, as Bob said, that would directly impact the availability of fine arts and the choices that kids make. And we want to get on offense, and we need your help. The first thing I would like for you to know about the work that Julia and I do in the Capitol, and we'll continue to do on behalf of fine arts programs in TMEA, is that the most important person to a legislator is a constituent, someone from back home that can get them elected. You know, one of the first things that a legislator thinks, as you can imagine, is that I want to get reelected. I want to make sure I'm doing what our voters do. And typically they want to do the right thing. But that's why we believe that in the area of fine arts, that our voice needs to be clearly and loudly heard by legislators, not only in the halls of the Capitol by Julia and Robert Floyd and myself and others that are advocates in Austin, but also from people back home. And there's no voice that's more important to a legislator in the area of education than a teacher. They know that you are suffering that with many decisions, you've got many distractions, you've got funding issues, you've got time issues, and they're very sensitive to your voices. And so you are becoming a necessary part of our successful campaign. And we believe that with your help and some of the things we're going to ask you to do, which we know you don't have a lot of time, so we're going to try to make this as clean and streamlined as we can for you. But if you would help us in this, then we think that we can be very successful. We know, like I said, we've got the best candidates, and we've got the best parents, the best, most passionate folks. So we just need to engage them. So we're going to create a proactive strategy that moves us onto playing offense and not defense. And that's going to require being heard. That's going to require us being seen. And we're going to ask you for your help in that. Of course, as Julia said, this new COVID paradigm is changing the way that we communicate with legislators, and just requires there to be more of a grassroots. You're where the rubber meets the road. You can tell the stories firsthand like nobody else can tell them. And so that is a very beneficial part of our offense when legislators think, oh my gosh, I've been hearing from my fine arts teachers back home, and they're very concerned about any more encroachments on their time or on their resources or frankly, their employment. So that's why we're asking you to help, because you're critical to a legislative voice, and your input is very important in the work that we're going to be doing this session. Julia?
I almost spoke with being muted, so now it's officially a Zoom meeting. So now is all about the how. How do we do that? And so really that is about creating a one-stop advocacy platform for all fine arts programs, for the visual arts, for music, for dance, for theater. What we find time and time again in working with legislators across the Capitol is that every single one of them has a story about how they're connected to the fine arts, whether it's they themselves who were a theater president, or how they have their daughter who is a competitive player in our not competitive, I shouldn't say competitive, but part of the all-state band. So, of course, competing for those seats, or they have a son who is an elementary school music teacher. So everybody in that Capitol is connected and understands the call of arts education. So here we've got to create a place, a website, a gathering, a community of all of arts programs first and foremost. What that does is that creates a broader community of advocates that not only includes, Mr. Floyd and me and Matt and others, but also teachers and your parents. You're passionate parents, and they want to help and they want to be involved, and students. There's critical messages that we can get from parents and students about how impactful the work that you're doing is, especially during this time. And so when we go to the Capitol, we're going to take with us really two essential principles. And one is that we want to go in and we want to heighten the support for the funding, for the promotion, and most of all for the protection of fine arts and education, and how critical it is, to every child's education. And through that, we're hoping, and we know that we will continue to push legislation that speaks to that, that emboldens that promotes that, and also, as Matt, stated earlier, defeat legislation that has a negative impact on arts education overall. There are attacks directly on us, and there are attacks that are not intended to be a direct attack, and so that's our job. All of our collective jobs together will work on making sure that elected officials have that perspective. So let's go through what that means in terms of the timeline over the next couple of months, because like I said, we are in real time, folks. It's happening now. So here's just a little high-level overview of the structure of legislative session. So we put your, Texas, social studies 101 hats on for a little bit. I promise not to bore you. I can get into some policy nerddom. So for the first 2 months, January and February, no bills can move. It says in statute, legislation cannot move for the first 60 days. Committees are formed, new legislative elected officials come on. Right now, it's very quiet, especially with COVID. So we've got this kind of brewing opportunity. Really nothing much happens no matter the session during these first 2 months. And we get in further into that, our March and April timeframe. Here's where we have committee hearings, and we've got committees in the House and the Senate that are dedicated to specific subject areas. So we have a public education committee on the House side and an education committee on the Senate side. And those two committees are forming now and will start having hearings over subjects during March and April. Here is where, again, it's a little bit more of a funnel. We're starting to get into subject specific areas, and then bills move fast and furious, really late April and May. Here's where we have bills switching Senate bills to House, House bills to Senate, and we've got really fast decisions and a lot of things happening on the floor through amendments and conference committees. So you're saying, okay, well, what does that mean to me, lady? Here's what that means to all of us. Here's what we'll do over the next couple of months. For the first 2 months, January and February, our focus is going to be positive and proactive. Here are all of the things that we are doing, elected official. Here are all the things that we are doing for your family, for our community members. We want to know what relationships you all have already. Texas is a large state, but our communities are small and tight knit. Nobody knows that better than you all. So who do you know? Who are your neighbors? Who are your best friends with? It's all about those sphere of influence becomes really critical at this juncture. We're also going to start sharing more stories. That becomes so essential to the communication of policy. There is nothing partisan about what happens in a classroom. It's just what happens. Either you have the support or you don't. It's not about whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's about you being an educator and communicating something that is so special and vital to the life of a child, and that's arts education. Moving into committee hearings, that's where we start getting more specific with our call of action. Here's where we start to talk about the kinds of policy that has impact in classrooms. What does it mean to have something that is enrichment curriculum versus foundation curriculum? What does that translate to when you have a third grader that might be pulled out of your music classroom in order to do accelerated instruction? What does that do to that child? And a lot of you can share direct experience with what really grows their brain is exposure to music and to the visual arts. And so we'll start to really tell, again, that story directly from you all through ongoing communication. And then when we get into April and May, you might hear from us a lot, but again, we know how busy you are. Our job is to ensure that you're informed. And so in April and May, that's where we get into specific bill language. That's where we say, here's what's going on with HB something, or SB, whatever bill is continuing to move. And so now you have a little bit of an idea of some of the pace over the next 4 months. So how do we,
Julia, if I may just interrupt there, because it's one thing we want to make clear, and I don't want anybody to have misperceptions. We're tracking this legislation. We're sorting through the thousands of bills that have been filed to look out for anything that could be damaging. We've already found some, but the filing period continues. So there is unknown legislation out there that could be filed as late as March. So our job will be to find those things and identify them and put together some arguments for you. We're not asking you to take on that role. So I just wanted you to be clear that we're not asking you to go through and read a bunch of legislation and do a lot of that lifting. That's why you have lobbyists, and we'll continue to push that function.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt, for saying that. We do want to emphasize we are here to be those policy nerds for you. That's part of our pride as being that person for you all. So what kind of communication are you going to get? What does that structure look like? We are so pleased for the partnership with TMAC and the work that TMAC does, that we are really utilizing a structure that largely exists across the state. And so here's an example of how we may structure part of those regions. Now it's up to those regions, and those regional chairs and officers are being talked to and communicated with now. And so you'll hear from them soon. But just to give you an idea of the board, again, with all of your input, we do want to continue to make sure that we're communicating with everyone on the content, on the work that we're doing. We'll communicate with the regional officers, into those target captains, to talk to teachers and parents on how they can communicate directly with a targeted elected official. Again, nothing, as Matt said earlier, nothing is more impactful than an elected official hearing directly from their constituents or directly from their teachers and parents that are in a district, in their legislative district, their House or Senate district. So here's an example of how regions could be structured. Now, we are lucky to be joined today by Mr. Gamez, who is, if I can switch the slide, who is from Pflugerville ISD, who is the regional chair for Central Texas, who is going to talk about an example of how he is going to work with his folks to structure Central Texas. So Mr. Gamez, would you walk us through this slide?
Yes, thank you, Julia. Thank you, Matt, and really humbled for the opportunity to serve you and your communities and your ISDs. So first and foremost is just trying to create a collaborative group of people together to disseminate all the information to you in the most efficient way, so that we are really targeting and pinpointing what we need to say and how we need to say it. And so the information will start at the information hub, is what I call our TAEC advisory board. Then it'll come to me as the regional chair. And then at that time, I'll meet with the Region Advisory Committee, persisting right now of Mr. Peter Warshaw, Lisa Robick, and Carol Watson. At that time, we'll look at the data, make sure that we've got exactly what you need, put it all together in a nice little package for you all to utilize, and then send it over to our Centex Advisory Committee. And Centex is we meet generally probably once every 2 weeks, if not maybe every week if we can afford to. A great amount of collaboration happens in those organizations and those meetings. And then we push out the information with our Centex Advisory Committee to, again, an example as Georgetown ISD. We'll send that information to our teachers, send it out to parents, and at that time, we will charge you to send that information to Senator Schwartner. So again, it's just a process. We want it to be very clear and distinct about what we're trying to do and provide that opportunity for you to have the right information at the right time, targeting the right people. So I'm hoping that makes sense on my end.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that example. I think it brings to light how not only the regions might be structured, but also how you all will take on and own those particular regional structures as well. As Mr. Gamez pointed out, this is how you all have built a really wonderful communicative structure that can aid in the formation of this campaign. We say it very often in policy world and education world, it's better not to reinvent the wheel. And you all have wonderful wheels that are turning and doing miraculous work. So in terms of, you're saying, okay, this is great, but what do I need to do? And here's what we want to assure you is, Matt has assured, thank you for continuing to emphasize the fact that in terms of what you all do, we will continue to provide you with the content, with the timing, with the bill language, with all of the information that you would need to feel empowered to make a phone call, one or two, an email, a letter, or a postcard. And so we will make sure that you have that information, the messaging, the timing, the people, right, to contact. So you know everything that you need to know before you engage in that action, because we know how busy and how much you are handling right now. It is superhuman, the plates that you all are taking on. And so we do not take the ask of asking you all to do another thing lightly. So we want to make it as easy but as actionable as possible.
And I would just add, Julia, your teachers and parents are not to the far right of this list because they're last. teachers and parents to the far right of this list because you're the most important. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the final contact that a legislator will get. And that's why your involvement in all of this is so important. That's what they're going to relate to. Julia and I are in the Capitol all the time and see legislators all the time. But when they hear from a teacher or a parent from back home, that's very meaningful. So that's why this is listed this way. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. That's a great point. And just to give you a little insight from my past staffer hat, often when things were moving really quickly, we have something called a constituent management system. And so when you call an office, they'll ask you for your address. They're doing that to see if you're a constituent. And oftentimes we would take notes for other calls, but we would make sure that we would track and respond and communicate with our constituents first. That's from a staffer and from an elected official, that's our job. And so that's why we emphasize your voice, your participation is very critical. So what do I do today, Julia? You're saying, what am I doing here? This is all great. It sounds wonderful. Here's the only thing that we need you all to do. We need you all to fill out a survey and follow up with us if you have questions. You're more than welcome to reach out at any time. I believe Joe is going to put it in the chat. So thank you so much for doing that. But you should, if I am good at technology, which sometimes I am, you should be able to use your smartphone and scan over this QR code and take you directly to a Google form. That Google form is just asking if you'd like to be involved and where you are based. That's all you need to do today. And we will reach out with more information, and you'll hear from your regional chairs or your site-specific person, target campaign chair, pretty soon. We're going to get this rocking and rolling pretty soon. So I know we are coming up on the half hour. I think we've got 4 minutes. I'll leave this up, but I'll turn it back over to Mr. Egger, or Mr. Clark, I should say. I apologize if the titles are incorrect. I just appreciate the time. We appreciate the time that we've been given here today, and happy to address any questions or concerns.
Absolutely. And Julia, thank you. And Matt, thank you. And of course, Mr. Floyd, thank you so much. Just in closing, guys, I just want to say these things to you guys. This is a huge effort. And I just want to say, someone sent you an invite to this meeting. Someone gave you an email or a calendar invite or something that cares deeply about you. So that person that sent you that calendar invite wanted you here to hear this. And it wasn't just another meeting. It was because we are looking out for you. And it's probably your fine arts director. And I'll tell you, with my teachers, I love all my teachers, and I tell them, and I'm not ashamed, and I see them in the chat too, and I'm so happy they're here. I'm saying we do need more to protect you, and we're always looking out for you. So think about that person that came out and gave you this invitation. They do care about you. Those are going to be those people that give you the next steps here. So don't worry. Just like and we help you with everything in the district. We help with like forms and everything else. This is something that we see coming down the future that we need to help advocate for you. So thank you so much for being here, and thank the person that invited you, because we have a lot of work to do, but we're going to do the heavy lifting. So we will communicate with you. We're going to do all the work, and we will reach out to you. So thank you guys so much for being here. Mr. Floyd, did you have anything?
Yeah, just to say again, thank you for being here. I've been around here a long time, but I truly am most excited about this opportunity. I've spent hundreds, maybe thousands of hours at the Capitol since 1995 was my first session. So, but this is an opportunity like we've never had before. And thanks certainly to Matt and Julia, certainly thanks to TMAC. Most importantly, thanks to you for being here today. This is a work in progress. We're building this, as we fly, but with the experience that we have and the dedication and the commitment of the TMAC leadership, my staff will be heavily involved in this as soon as we can get through the virtual conference, which is staring us in the face right now. And I do want to clearly mention that we are building a website right now. And that will be a tool that we will use a lot to communicate with you, and email and other ways, and the information you're giving us right now. But we've sort of done this approach one other time. And we had 60,000 arts supporters in a database in the TMEA office. And our goal is to build something similar throughout this campaign. And so it's exciting and we're looking forward to it. And as always, you can also call me if you have questions. But you know, it's going to be fun in many ways. And as I always say, I love it when we win at the Capitol because the ultimate beneficiaries of that are our students. And I'll close since Matt and Julia, I guess, are done, and I'm not sure I heard it. Each of you doesn't have to do everything, but everyone's got to do something. So that's what we're counting on from you, and we look forward to the journey ahead. Thanks so much.
Bob, if I could just add one thing that as with the structure is built out, I want it to be clear that this is going to be this is going to be a two-way street too. We certainly, through your regional captains and target folks, to have your stories and your input and your contacts, and to give you the tools for you to be creative and do things that you want to do too. So this is a structure that overlays to give you some idea about how we're reaching people. But we certainly hope that you will, send us names of people and links and let it be organic and grow to the extent that you have stories to tell. And this is the time to wear it proudly on your sleeve, and we're counting on you. We think we can win this thing, but we got to have you. Thank you very much for our time.
Thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Clark. Apologies for earlier. Thank you so much for giving us so much time today.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. And thank you, Mr. Floyd and Julia and everybody. Impactful stuff. It's going to be powerful. Y'all can do it. Nothing's better for kids than fine arts education. We got this.